about to join Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an Intel Analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Neuen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Neuen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You're now in Don Neuen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Smello.
What's up, Denise Simon? It's your buddy calling in.
Yes, it is.
It is indeed. And guess what? I'm calling in about 30 minutes early. Well, not really, about 20 minutes early tonight. I was able to escape the office and get out of work a little early. Aren't you thrilled?
Uh-huh.
Hey, an early night for me means an early night for you.
Indeed it does.
Right,
It does. I can go back in the pool and cool off.
Must be nice having a pool. I've just got feels.
It is.
Gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Drive Time Situation Report. My name is Don Neuen. On the other end of this conversation is the ever-stellar Denise Simon. And we are going to be coming to you for the next 52 minutes, with the exception of a new change, and that is that we are proud to announce that the Drive Time Situation Report has been picked up by another network. We are grateful for that. But at the bottom of the hour, Denise, we have to go to a network break.
Network break. That's an echo.
That's right.
Echo.
Now, the tough thing about doing this, ladies and gentlemen, is that I'm coming to you from in my car, driving home after a long day at work. Denise Simon is down in the Tampa Bay area of Florida, and she is in her bunker. I don't have any type of a clock to be able to look at to know when we have to go to this 3-minute network break at the bottom of the hour. So, Denise, I got to count on you to keep me informed of that. Give me maybe a 30.
Give it my best shot.
Yeah, give me like a 30-second notice. We'll get out of this segment, and then, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere because we're going to pick back up where we left off. Now, with all fairness, we have been touting the fact for the better part of a year with this show that we do not seek or obtain any advertising money. And we do not. We still do not. Again, this is a network break that we're forced into because of the network, and we're more than happy to do it. But nobody is going to mandate what Denise Simon and Don Neuen talk about, so we're still going along with no advertisers or advertising money. Felt like I ought to mention that, Denise, because there's no telling what's going to come out of your mouth. You know what I mean?
Oh, really? What was the stuff that you were bringing up last week? I was being a good girl.
I don't remember what I was bringing up last week.
Oh,
what was I bringing up? What did I say?
Talking about the Japanese quail.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hey, turn down your headset. I'm hearing an echo. I'm hearing me echo in your headset.
Better.
Well, it's not you. It's me. All right, that sounds better. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Denise Simon timestamped this show, and let's get after it.
It is 8:42 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it is still somewhat daylight on the 10th of July in the year of our Lord 2018.
There you go. Okay, I can still hear an echo coming through your headset, so bring it down just a little bit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Denise, I was not able to check anything today. Drudge, social media, nothing. I got to have you help me out with this SITREP. What happened today in the world of rock and roll?
Well, not really anything shattering, except that, we're still doing all the fallout of the 901 announcement last night of Brett Kavanaugh as the candidate for the next seat on the Supreme Court replacing Justice Kennedy. And Trump has gotten on an airplane and he is landed in Belgium to do, I think, 2 days at NATO. And then he will go do 2 days, I think, in London, maybe longer than that. And then we go on to Helsinki to have a confab with Vladimir. And so what is particularly interesting are the predictions on how Trump is not going to be well received at NATO because he has been trolling other NATO member leadership, saying you're not paying your fair share and you guys are a bunch of freeloaders. And so they're all going to stand there with their hands on their hips, I guess, and stomp their feet. So that's
all right. Well, hold it right there. Hold it right there. He's accurate with that statement, correct?
correct.
Okay. And he has every right, and we have every right to be pissed off that we are funding and supporting basically a welfare NATO alliance, correct?
Not really. I mean, some of them, everybody's paying into, something. So, I mean, they're not completely freeloaders. The agreement is 2% of your gross domestic product, your GDP.
Okay, and how many of the NATO allies are contributing 2% of GDP?
5, I think.
Out of
37, maybe.
Okay, I think Trump has he's got the right to be pissed off here.
Well,
I know I am.
I'm not saying that he doesn't.
Okay.
For sure. We also necessarily need to understand that accounting too, because it's not necessarily cash that you just write a check for your dues, once a year, or that kind of thing. It's what they do in their country to contribute to NATO efforts. If you're sending forces, if you're sending equipment, if you're sending blah, 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 blah into any coalition operations, that counts for something. If you are holding certain intelligence trainings, some of these other things, those count for something. But we do know that we've got countries, and I'm just going to keep Germany up there because they're just not doing a flipping thing on really any of it. I think they're paying 1.2%.
Okay. Well,
now,
as probably one of the biggest economies in the European Union, they need to get off their ass and start taking care of business, do they not?
What's particularly interesting is, and if I were
do you
Trump,
agree?
I
Hold
would
on,
be asked.
Do you agree?
Well, I'm trying to answer it this way. If I were Trump, I would take a little bit different approach and say, that's just your annual contribution, Germany or any other country. Maybe you guys need to start paying what you have owed over the last 25 years.
Oh, because I would assume that's a magnificent number.
I would think so. And there was a time where they were, in fact, still in arrears, but they were much more involved. We had more German forces, more French forces, more Italian, you know what I'm saying? There are some that are working diligently. They were, maybe at 1%, and now they're heading in that direction. They could be at 1.6%. You see what I mean? So some of them were at least trying to get to that end. Point being is that I haven't seen all the accounting, so I can see where the precise trolling that Trump is doing is all called for. Let's put it that way.
Oh, I'm glad we agree on that, because I guarantee you Trump has seen all of the accounting.
Probably.
Exactly. All right, so he's going over there. He's going to get a cold welcome from all these welfare leeches with NATO. What else do you anticipate will come out of that meeting?
Well, I think they're going to have certainly a confab on what some of these concerns are going forward with and what NATO really deals with. I'm not convinced that Trump, he doesn't like NATO. He's never liked NATO. I mean, he made the threat early on in the campaign he was going to get out completely. He thought it was worthless. But I think they're going to talk about some of the other things that go on in NATO so he can have a better grasp. And a lot of that is certainly counterterrorism. A good bit of it's going to be cyber, and that's huge. So, and then other cooperations. You know, we would like to maybe reduce forces someplace, and if we do by 1,000, well, 2 other countries kick in each 500, so we can have some relief. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. All right.
So
from that, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, in the meantime, he leaves and then goes to London. Now, this is particularly concerning. We know that Theresa May has had some real issues trying to put together a Brexit government. And she had 3, I think, that resigned over the weekend, and I think 2 more actually resigned today. She put a health minister in to replace her foreign minister, which was really kind of a weird thing. But our U.S. Embassy in London put out an alert today, Don. And the alert is they estimate numerous demonstrations from the 12th to the 14th surrounding the president's visit to the United Kingdom. The majority of the demonstrations will be focused in central London on July the 13th, and other events are planned for the 12th and the 14th. They are to have large crowds. There will be road closures in connection with those events. So if they're closing roads, that means that they're allowing these protests, these demonstrations against Trump. So what the State Department has said, these are your actions to be taken. 1, be aware of your surroundings. This is for Americans, by the way. 2, exercise caution if unexpectedly in the vicinity of large gatherings that may become violent. 3, keep a low profile. 4, monitor local media for updates. Number 5, view updates from the UK police at the Metropolitan Police Department of the UK and follow their respective Twitter accounts. Now, it gets better because the London mayor, Mr. Sadiq Khan, he tweets out today that London is a city of openness, tolerance, and diversity. And then it was last week that he says he didn't approve, but the legislature approved, that they were going to fly a blimp that was made into a caricature of Trump in what they call a nappy over there. We call them diapers over here. Now, this thing is rather sizable, and it's actually called Trump Baby. And Trump Baby actually has its own Twitter account. This is a 20-foot tall inflatable blimp that depicts an orange baby meant to represent Trump with a malevolent face and tiny hands. This is on the Twitter account. Trump can become a permanent feature of this dreadful presidency, a constant, unmissable reminder of the contempt with which this embarrassment of a man is held by everyone outside of his deranged, bigoted base. So the mayor, he's actually supported the right to peacefully protest, but Tommy Robinson can't.
Exactly. Hey, this mayor is a fraud. He's a fraud. Absolute fraud.
And so, apparently some have said they wanted it taken down, but it's not going to be taken down. It is actually going to be flying on July the 13th, and they've actually given it time, a time frame, and there's a stop Trump march that's also reported that evening on the 13th. So, yeah.
You know, once again, you've got all this crap on the left and this anti-Trump movement and these anti-Trump protests and these disrespectful moves and actions against our country and our president. But when you go, well, why are you doing this? You still get the same nothing answers that you and I have been talking about for weeks. Oh, well, he's a bigot. His supporters are a bigot. Well, you know what, Denise? I support Donald Trump, and I'm not a bigot. And I'm getting damn sick and tired of being called one, especially from people in the United Kingdom.
Well, you would think that the Queen, because he is meeting with the Queen and he is meeting with Theresa May, you would think the Queen would kind of step in and say, you know, this is not what the British culture is all about. And they're not, you know. So I would think she would have had something to say. And if she didn't, I would have thought that maybe Theresa May would have had something to say. But no. So.
Well, that says a lot, don't you think?
I do.
I mean,
he's walking into a hornet's nest.
Well, and you know what? There's nobody that I would have walk into that hornet's nest with more confidence than Trump. If we're going to have somebody walk into a hornet's nest, I'm glad it's Trump, because he's got the stones to say, hey, you know what? I'm sick and tired of having welfare leeches hanging on to me and my country and my people.
Remember, I think he canceled a trip last year or late last year, I forget when, because he was going to formally open our new embassy. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then he said he didn't want any part of it because it was in a stupid part of town and we paid too much money for it and this and that. I don't know what if anything that will have to do with this visit.
Well, all I want to say about the NATO meeting as well as the trip to the UK, all I got to say about that, Denise, is I'm glad that it's Donald Trump and not some spineless schmuck that's assuming the role of the Oval Office and the President of the United States. I'm glad we've got somebody going over there that's actually going to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to tolerate this kind of crap. You can fly your blimp. You can do whatever you want to, but I'm not a politician, and I don't play by those rules, and shove it. And I know that you might counter that. Well, we've got to, have a decent relationship with our allies. I don't call a country that would allow this type of behavior without at least coming out and saying something like you said on the part of the Queen or Theresa May. Hey, listen, this is the President of the United States, an ally, a country that we need, and we need to start behaving like a civilized country. You want to act like that, go to the Congo or something like that.
I am not disagreeing with any of that. We get enough of this crap over here, and then he's got to go over to London. And I guarantee you, Sadiq Khan is kind of saying, well, my hands had nothing to do with it, and I didn't approve it. Well, he also is the mayor, and he can turn around and veto it, too.
Of course he can. But he's not going to do that.
No.
Let me ask you something, Denise. You and I have had numerous conversations about your feelings toward Donald Trump and your position on him. Do you support Donald Trump as the President of the United States?
Yes, of course.
And you hope he succeeds. As much as you disagree with some of the stuff he does, you hope for our country that he is successful and a proven leader and goes down in history as being a good president.
You're making it sound like I'm the bad guy. But I can guarantee Don, that you too disagree with some of his methods. I
do not disagree with that. Now, but again, just to answer my question, and the answer is yes. So my question to you is, given those two things that you answered yes to, are you a bigot Are you offended that you're labeled as one? Are you offended that you're labeled as a racist or a Nazi sympathizer? I'm offended at this crap, Denise.
I just kind of brush it off anymore. It doesn't.
I don't.
Okay. It doesn't. I mean, I guess I take a different kind of view. We've been called this stuff, though, Don, going all the way back at the beginning of the Obama administration when Janet Napolitano put out her list. Remember the target list?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't get to me anymore.
Well, I didn't let it get to me for a lot of years. I'm getting damn sick and tired of it. I'm getting damn sick and tired of it. But this show is not designed for a soapbox for me to sit and talk about how pissed off I am. All right, so let's move to the meeting with Putin. What do you expect out of that? What do you hope out of it? Give me your thoughts on that, because I'm real interested in your take on that.
Well, I would like to see Trump back Putin into a corner and say, the United States has had about enough of your crap, and so have our allies. You can do what you want to some of these third world hellholes, as he called them, but you're not going to do it to the United States anymore. And these are the consequences, and lay out the consequences, even if there have to be more. I mean, he's been, for the most part, rather tough. I think he can get a whole lot tougher, but there's a lot of moving parts, and those moving parts include Syria. Those moving parts include Ukraine. They include Syria, Iran, cyber, trolling, all these other kinds of things, hacking, all these kinds of things. So I know that he has the files. I know that he has enough ammunition, or I should say arrows in his quiver, to put Putin in his place. The big question is, will he? And I don't know.
Well, again, I can't think of anyone better to sit down across from a table than Putin at this time in history than Trump. And I hope I'm right.
Well, I hope you're right too. But when it comes to Putin, he always goes soft, and therein lies a problem. I can't get my head around it.
All right, look. Let's talk about Syria. So they sit down at the table, and the discussion of Syria comes up. Now, clearly, as you and I discussed about 3 weeks ago, Putin is not going to leave Syria. But do you think that Trump can get him to get Iran out of there?
Not without some kind of significant something from Putin. But we can go on for this, but we've got about 25 seconds until we come into a break here. So.
All right, so keep an eye on that clock, because again, this is unlike any other radio show you'll ever listen to, ladies and gentlemen. I'm clicking along at 75 miles an hour. We are about to go to break. Denise, how many seconds do we have? Let me know.
12.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Drive Time Situation Report with Don Neuen and Denise Simon. We will be back.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hi, thank you for listening. My name is Ron Phillips, and I'm the owner and operations manager of Talk America Radio. It is with great pride that I offer you this 24/7 stream of some of the finest talk radio programming in the country, but I need your support. We are a listener-supported network. That means we need your help to continue to offer the quality programming you're hearing right now. If you're able, please visit talkamericaradio.us and click the Support Us button. Your donation will go a long way in helping us continue to share the American voice. Thank you.
This is Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience. When I'm not debating with Donna Fiducia about politics, I listen to Cowboy Logic Radio. Why, you ask? Because outside of my blog, founderscode.com, and my own radio show, the Denise Simon Experience, Cowboy Logic is by far the most entertaining and informative radio show on planet Earth. Plus, Don makes me feel guilty if I don't listen to his radio show every week.
Hi, this is Donna Fiducia, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio. For 28 years, I was in the mainstream media, most recently as an anchor at the Fox News Channel. No more. Ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media has completely failed the American people. Radio networks like Talk America Radio will not fail you. Radio shows like Cowboy Logic Radio will not fail you. Check out the entire roster of over 60 weekly radio shows by visiting talkamericaradio.us. That's talkamericaradio.us.
TalkAmericaRadio.us.
This is Denise Simon. 18 hours a day, I live in a world as an intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence. What I find is reprehensible. What I find is terrifying. What I find is treasonous. 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 The mainstream media has completely failed the American people. 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 Join me for the Denise Simon Experience every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. This is Don Neuen with the Drive Time Situation Report. On the other end of this conversation is the ever stellar Denise Simon. By the way, just to let you guys know, if you're first-time listeners, I'm in my car driving home. I'm on I-20. I'm clicking along now at about 75 miles an hour on my way home from work. I call Denise Simon as often as I can to get a situation report from her. Denise spends all day in the weeds, sifting through files and information and documents and videos and hearings and everything else. I count on her, and I value so deeply her willingness to have a SITREP with me or a discussion about what happened today. That's what you're a part of. We've been doing this, I guess, for about a year, it feels like, Denise. I'm not sure. But this show's been probably close to a year in its duration. Once a week, we record this show for you. So we were talking before the break there about Putin and Trump meeting and what we're hoping he can walk away with. Before I forget to ask you about this, Denise, you know, last week we heard from Pompeo that the meetings in North Korea went well. But the report you get from the North Koreans is that it was regrettable. What do you think really happened between the meetings with Mike Pompeo and North Korea?
China.
Well, no doubt. That's probably always the conversation. But what do you think went down? Why do you think that Pompeo came out of it with a positive vibe, or at least that's what he's portraying, and the North Koreans are going, well, the meeting was regrettable?
Well, I think what Pompeo did was kind of drill down on a list of requirements that were a annex to the signing statement that Trump and Little Kim signed during the Singapore summit. So I think that something was drilled down probably just a little bit more, and I think some of those things raised the eyebrows of Kim, and not because of Kim, but because China won't accept them. So I believe that the Singapore summit was for global theater in part, and Kim had made a couple of trips to Beijing maybe up to 3. And Beijing is not liking at all what the position of the United States, especially on more tariffs, another $200 billion today. And then the day after Pompeo met this last time with Kim, a plane, his personal plane, it is unclear whether he was on it or not, left the very next day from Pyongyang and flew to Vladivostok. It was in Vladivostok for about 3 hours and then flew back. So we don't know what that was about.
Well, what do you think it was about?
That there had to be some things that were delivered, some tapes of the meetings that they could have been recorded between the Pompeo envoy and the Kim side of the table, and they handed them off to somebody that was going to get them over to Moscow, to the Kremlin. It may have been some monies. It may have been because there's been talk about holding a second summit. Global summit, and I don't think that's now going to go anywhere. So,
okay,
yeah. There's just so many moving parts to all of these things.
No, I know it's extremely convoluted. Let's talk about China and the tariffs. Did you, by any chance? I know that Donna was watching this closely, but I haven't talked to her about this. What happened with the stock market today?
I don't know.
Okay.
No.
All right. Hey, let's do the listeners a favor. Timestamp it for them if you don't mind.
All right. Well, it is 9:08 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the 10th of July, 2018. And with that, I'm going to bring us home here. We're going to talk about some things at home because obviously we announced Brett Kavanaugh as the nominee for the Supreme Court. And what's particularly fascinating is the pre-planned protests in front of the Supreme Court last night.
Yeah, pre-planned. That's the operative word.
Well, they were. And, you had all kinds of Democrat speakers there. Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris and what's her face?
Hey, hold on a second. Hold that thought right there, because when you mentioned Kamala Harris, Donna was talking the other night to me about the fact that Trump put in a call to Kamala Harris to discuss this Supreme Court nominee.
Let me put that in perspective. Trump called all of the members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, of which she is a member.
Exactly.
All of those senators took his phone call to discuss his choices and their thoughts. And she was the only senator who refused his call.
All right. I find that to be extremely inappropriate.
Do too.
Not only that, but extremely irresponsible as her role as a senator to discuss something as important as a Supreme Court justice nominee. She did her constituents a huge, huge disfavor.
Especially when she sits on the committee.
Exactly. Now, what should be done, could be done, other that can make this black eye on Kamala Harris stick?
Nothing. That should have come out from this White House in a press conference, but we didn't have one today because everybody's left to go to Europe.
All right. Okay, continue. I just wanted to make sure any of the listeners that didn't realize what an absolute disgrace Kamala Harris is, maybe now this will help you understand that.
Well, let me say some things. Shannon Bream, who is a lawyer herself, and she does the Fox Hour at 11 o'clock at night. She was going to do a live spot from the Supreme Court last night. And they had to cancel it, and they went back to the studio because she said she felt threatened and unsafe, and she wasn't going to put herself or the Fox crew through that. So that's where we are with that one.
Hey, a little sidebar note to that, Denise. Do you know who Shannon Bream's brother-in-law is?
No.
You don't? Well, you're going to appreciate this bit of trivia, and I have a feeling our listeners will too. It's Sid Bream, the former first baseman for the Atlanta Braves.
Oh, I'd have been there a long time before I knew that one.
Yeah, but you know who Sid Bream is, right?
No.
Oh, come on. He's the guy that slid into home base with the knee brace on that sent them to the World Series.
Oh.
Back in 90, whatever it was. 96?
I wasn't born then.
Yeah, you were. Matter of fact, your hearing started going by then. That was quick and witty. Hey, anyway, seriously, Google Sid Bream. You can do it while we're doing the show here. Google Sid Bream. You'll remember him sliding into home plate because I was up at whatever time that was, 2 a.m., waiting for that game to end to find out if the Braves were finally going to the World Series. So Google Sid Bream slide. Ladies and gentlemen, you do the same thing.
Let's see.
Did you say no, Denise? You're not going to do this?
I don't remember. I mean, that's what I'm trying to tell you. He was with the Dodgers and the Pirates, the Braves, and the Astros.
He was, yeah, but with the Braves, he had the big slide with the big knee brace on because he had to lumber around the bases because he was injured, and he slid into home. And it was a terrible looking slide.
I believe you, but I don't remember it. Sorry.
Okay, well, Google that at some point before the show's over so that you can tell all the listeners you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. I see the YouTube here, which I'm not going to click on.
Yeah, don't do that. You see him slide?
No, I told you I'm not going to click on it. I think this was
in 92. Look for a photo.
I think it was in 92 World Series and not 96, according to this.
Maybe. You may be correct there. You may be correct.
I see this.
At any rate, hey, ladies and gentlemen, isn't this fascinating? Aren't you glad you tuned into this one?
Skip
all right,
Carey
so, yeah, Skip Carey was still around.
All right, so here's the deal. So we had Elizabeth Warren. You know, she comes out with some, fun things like Brett Kavanaugh has a record as a judge and a lawyer that is clear hostile to health care for millions. He's opposed to corporate accountability, and he thinks that presidents like Trump are above the law, and he would absolutely overturn Roe versus Wade. And then we had, several others, that came out with all kinds of nonsense. Chris Murphy, he's an anti-consumer zealot, an opponent of pre-existing condition protections, a critic of abortion rights, and access to contraception. Why would he? I mean, how does he? Second Amendment radical, a bad choice. NAACP, they came out. Reverend Al Sharpton is a serious, immediate threat to women's civil rights, labor rights, LGBTQ. No confirmation. Bernie Sanders, rubber stamp for an extreme right-wing agenda pushed by corporations and millionaires, mobilize the American people to defeat. Nancy Pelosi, she came out with as destructive tool on the generation of progress for workers, women, LGBTQ, communities of color, families to radically reverse the course of American justice and democracy. Chuck Schumer, we know what that one is.
Isn't it amazing? Hold on a second. Isn't it amazing that all these people are coming out doing that and saying this, and this guy's going to do none of that?
Correct.
None of that. I mean, this guy is in my opinion, he was picked because he's a clone of Kennedy.
Michael Moore.
He's not going to do any of this stuff.
He came out with, his background that he worked with Ken Starr to impeach Clinton, and he worked on the case of the Bush versus Gore in the Supreme Court case, which he did. He must be stopped. John Cusack, he had something to say. Partisan lackey. I can go on and on and on. Patty Murray.
And what is Ruth Ginsburg and Sotomayor?
Ezra
What
Klein.
are they?
Yeah.
They're activists that wear black robes.
Earth Justice. He's not going to stand on the side of the environment. Cory Booker, critical, Palmer Report. Dianne Feinstein, he's far outside the mainstream when it comes to healthcare, executive power, privacy, gun safety. Kamala Harris, well, we already know where she is. So those were just some of the comments. Now let's go a little bit further, shall we? Because remember, Shannon Bream had to leave and go back to the studio. And because we had these protesters, and a lot of them were out there with pre-printed signs, purple shirts, protect Roe, keep abortion legal, don't criminalize abortion, blah, 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 blah. I stand with Planned Parenthood, stop Kavanaugh. That was after they figured out his name. So this was all done by several groups. One of the larger groups is one called Indivisible. Are you familiar with Indivisible?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
Indivisible is if you actually send them a donation check, which I know that you won't, but in case you do, you're going to get a receipt back in the mail under the organization of Act Blue. So they're deeply embedded with Act Blue. Very grassroots type operation that is also part of the leadership includes Jennifer Palmieri, Valerie Jarrett, and Organizing for America. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah, and all the same names.
Okay.
All the same names.
Well,
we wondered what these people have been doing, huh?
Well, they've been holding these sessions, and they've been holding them since at least 2017, early 2017. And it's all part of this resist and rebuild agenda. Now, there are three distinct people in this operation I want to talk about. One of them is a girl by the name of Megan Stone. Well, she's the director of the Malala Fund. Malala was the girl who had, I think, the acid. She was the Pakistani that wanted to go to school and had the acid thrown all over her face.
Yeah, spell that organization for the listeners in case they had trouble catching it.
Malala, Malala Fund. She is also the Vice President of Communications and Special Projects for the World Food Program USA and the President of the Developing Group supporting global partnerships and education. Now, she leads special projects in conjunction with the Clinton Global Initiative, the World Economic Forum, the UN, the G8, blah, 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 blah. Okay, she's also worked for the Democratic National Convention, the inauguration of Obama, and she is a member of the board for both Pencils of Promise and Good Labs, whatever the heck that is. But let's go on to the next guy. His name is Angel Padilla. Now, Angel, he's particularly fun because he's a policy director at the Indivisible Project. He's also served as the health policy analyst for the National Immigration Law Center and immigration policy consultant for the National Council of what? La Raza, legislative assistant for Congressman Luis Gutierrez. He advises on issues relating to health care, Affordable Care Act, and he is intern for the Department of Homeland Security Advisory Council and the U.S. House of Representatives. Then we have this other girl, Maria Urbina. Well, she's the Vice President of Politics and National Campaigns for Voto Latino, where she is charged with developing a voter engagement strategy, running multiple national campaigns, and heading up the Political and Communications Department of Voto Latino. Before that, she was the Senior Advisor for Hispanic and Asian Affairs in the office of who? Ding, 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 Democrat leader Harry Reid. She worked for Harry Reid on policy, political strategy, outreach to the Latino and the Asian American communities in Nevada. She elevated their advocacy with the Democrat caucus in the U.S. Senate. And prior to actually being on Reid's senior staff, she served as the legislative correspondence manager and immigration legislative aide. In addition to her Senate work, she has worked on Latino political outreach in several key campaigns, including for Obama in 2012, Harry Reid in 2010, and Senator Mark Udall in 2014. She's the proud alumnus of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute Public Policy Fellowship Program. Whew! Okay, those are just three.
Yeah.
Now understand that
it's nauseating, Denise. It's nauseating.
I know, but you gotta understand where all this is coming from, because
Yeah, I get it.
Indivisible puts people through a 6-week grassroots training course, and they have chapters all over the place. They've got an 8,600 square foot office building in Washington D.C., but they got chapters in New York. They got chapters in Chicago, Austin, Texas, Oakland, Seattle, all these places. And then they put out these scripts. And these scripts, all you have to do is necessarily just change a few words, but you can just use these scripts for anything, because their advocacy work at the grassroots level, you pick and choose what issue you want to work on. You want to work on immigration? Okay, you go over to this room. You want to work on healthcare? You go over to this room. You want to work on, education, something else? You go over to this room. So you get to pick and choose where you want to go, but your training is essentially still all the same. And so they have a complete strategy targeting individual members of Congress, and that's not just the Democrats, it's the Republicans too. They just nailed them. And they took all of the strategies, by the way. They stole everything from the Tea Party, and they retooled it, reworked it, and came up with this whole strategic component operation. And so in Chapter 1, they talk about grassroots advocacy. Chapter 2 is your members of Congress. They're called MOCs, members of Congress. Re-election, 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 and how to use that to save the democracy. Save the democracy. So what you have to do is find out what makes these people look weak. You have to give them bad press. You have to make them unlikable, and then you have to make them vulnerable. Chapter 3 is organize locally. You pretty much know what that is. Chapter 4 is advocacy tactics. This is the good one, because when you have 2 senators or a representative in your area, make sure that you show up at the town halls, in district events, and you listen to them, and then you make them listen to you. So you have to stand up and just kind of get in their face, regardless of who it is. And then you go to these MOCs, members of Congress, ribbon cutting things and kissing babies and the photo ops and all these other kinds of things. And you make sure that your picture as a leftist is taken with like a Republican. So then it begins to taint the Republican. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So then we have to talk about racism, authoritarianism, corruption, and then you have to go visit their district offices all the time, wherever they are. Just don't go to one, go to all of their district offices. You have to do these coordinated phone calls. They can have an impact, but you have to barrage them with phone calls and faxes and all these other kinds of things. So this is the community organizing thing. Remember that from Barack Obama? Well, they started off with almost immediately. You trot on over their website, and what's on there? A big, huge picture. We must stop Brett Kavanaugh from becoming Trump's next Supreme Court justice. What's at stake? Reproductive justice, access to affordable health care, and LGBTQ equality. Already there.
Yeah, but you know what? They can't come up with 1 ounce of any type of validity to support their claims. Not 1 ounce.
And but that's the whole point. They don't have to.
I know it is. It's sickening. This whole thing. Just listening. I'm telling you, listening to you read that was nauseating to have to listen to.
They're manufacturing a crisis.
Of course they are. How much time we got, Denise?
Oh, let's see here. We got 3 minutes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I need to share with you a website that you need to go to on a regular basis. It is Denise's website. It's founderscode.com. Founderscode.com. And once you go to that website, you will follow and find all of her great work that she does. You can put your email address in a little box that's on there someplace and click subscribe, and then you'll get all of her postings sent to you in a neatly packaged email that you can read at your leisure. Now, the one good thing about Denise's website that you need to know here is that she does all the work for you. You know, there's so much out there that is bogus, unvetted, unreliable, and quite frankly, false information that's being spread all over the place, both on the left and the right, that you really can't post or engage in social media without running the risk of doing it without any integrity. Well, one way to battle that is for you to go to founderscode.com. Go to Denise's website. She does all of that work for you so that you're able to discuss, repost, quote, whatever you want to do, and you can do it with integrity because she's already vetted the work for you. So I really encourage you guys to go check that out. The other website I'd like to send you to is cowboylogic.us. That's the official website for Cowboy Logic Radio. We've got a player that's embedded there. I think Denise also has that player on her website. But it allows you to listen 24/7 to many of the great shows that are on Talk America Radio, also shows that are on, also repeat shows of Cowboy Logic Radio. I got 7 hours of them loaded, or 14 hours, something like that, loaded in there in a rotation so that you're never listening to the same thing back to back. At any rate, having said all that, Denise, again, you're watching the clock now for the first time on a drive time SITREP. How we doing?
50 seconds.
All right, anything you want to share in the last, say, 28 or 30 or 45 seconds of that 50 seconds?
Well, I would say that apparently this parade that's going to happen for Veterans Day that Donald Trump has asked the Pentagon to do has apparently, in fact, been approved. So I would say that, certainly watch for that one. The Joint Chiefs of Staff have signed off on it. We don't know what that full cost is, by the way, but it will be essentially a veteran's history from the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, going all the way up through where we are today. You will have Medal of Honor Association, veteran service organizations, all those kinds of things. So,
well,
but there won't be any tanks.
I can't think of any better way to spend taxpayer dollars than in recognizing our veterans. If we can spend $300,000 to teach African males on the continent of Africa how to wash their genitals, then we sure as hell can spend that kind of money to recognize our veterans. What do you think about that, Denise?
Or do that cocaine testing on the Japanese.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, that's all.
Denise, say goodbye and good night, as only you do.
Thanks for being with us. God bless America.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.